Today we are here to talk about iPads, iPhones, tablet devices when it comes to young children ages 3 and below. And we are here with Ivan Sanchez. He's a state-approved developmental service vendor within California's Early Start program. So can you give us a little bit of information or background in this field?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. The Early Start program is California's program for children that have delays or are at risk of having delays. Kids with delays in language, motor skills, learning, as well as social delays and self-help delays. The Early Start program, it helps children by providing appropriate therapies. And my role in that program is to go into the home, do an evaluation to assess the overall development of a child, and then see what the child needs based on the results. The reason that I've been asked to talk about this topic is because one of the things that's happening nowadays is that iPads and iPhones and all these kind of tablets, it's so common for children, even as young as 1-year-old, 2-year-old, even infants, to be given these tablets, these devices for entertainment, for their use. And so the real question is it good for them? Because I know as parents, we want to always think that we're doing the best thing for our children. And especially in our culture, and common throughout the world, nowadays, now that iPads and iPhones and everything, all those kind of electronic devices have had such a boom, parents feel like pressure that, okay, my child has to have one of these devices. And from hands-on experience working with children, I've been working with kids already for 20 years and almost 10 years doing assessments for the Early Start program. I can tell you that I do see adverse effects from infants. I'm talking about 1 and below, 2 and below, 3 and below being exposed to these devices.
So I'm very interested to learn more about this topic, especially because I'm a mother and I have a 2-year-old. She's 2.5 actually, and I'd like to know more information regarding benefits of iPad use, or the adverse effect, like what you were saying. So please tell us more about with your expertise, let us know what we can learn from.
Well, one of the things I've noticed from working with children hands-on is that when you go to see a child's focus, their concentration, it's affected a lot when they have an iPad at use all the time. An example of that is that kids that have the iPad all the time, when you show them another kind of stimulus, like something that involves coloring or something more traditional like a book, you can tell a child that's been overly exposed to an iPad, they'll lack the attention toward a traditional kind of media for learning and for stimulation. And you could see that they have a hard time focusing because the iPad and the way that it's designed, it captures your attention so easily that you don't have to exercise any skills of focus or concentration. So that's one of the things that I've noticed hands-on. One of the things that people would be surprised to learn, and we're going to show on the screen a slide of this website. New York Times did a story 2014 about Steve Jobs. Now we all know who Steve Jobs is. He is one of the founders of Apple. He is one of the geniuses that made a lot of Apple products, including the iPad. And you would think that Steve Jobs, his household, his children, would all be hooked up to iPads and using iPads constantly. And actually, in one of the interviews that he did, I'll just read here in the interview. The interviewer asked Steve Jobs, "So your kids must love the iPad?" And his answer was, "They haven't used it." So imagine, as a parent, we're buying these products, we're thinking that they're good for them, and yet his answer was also, we limit how much technology our kids use in the home. So if you think about that, why would he do that, right? Why would he limit his kids' use of something that he made up on his own? Well, the reason is because him and other people that work in technology, they know firsthand that exposure to this kind of media can be harmful to children. An example is that many of these people that founded these technologies, they're aware of the dangers that it could be to children, and especially, for example, pornography, cyberbullying, we've heard that, and becoming addicted to their devices just like their parents. And before I go to that, we're going to show another slide on the screen about a video from ABC News that talks about addiction to technology. And it's actually ABC News Australia. They did, and this is a very nice 13-minute feature if you could see it. I have it here on YouTube, the link. And it talks about how these technologies can become addictive to adults and even to children, young children, and that it even changes their brainwave patterns being exposed to this technology. So I know that as a parent, like I said, we want to do the best for our kids, but this is something that we have to really think about. Another thing, in terms of benefits, because you asked me about benefits, the benefits is entertainment, right? Of course, and then also as a parent, you have a break from your child for a little while because of the technology. But it's really the overuse of this technology that we're talking about and the early exposure to young children of this technology. Another example of the adverse effects is I'm showing right now on the screen an article or a radio piece from National Public Radio. The title is Why is Nearsightedness Skyrocketing Amongst Chinese Youth? And if we would listen to that story, we can see there that being exposed to that technology, especially children, if you think about it, young children, 0 to 5, their bodies are not fully developed. And one of the things that they have is that their arms are short and they cannot hold the pad, the screen, far enough from their eyes so that it won't be damaging. And one of the things they're finding is that there's skyrocketing rates of nearsightedness or myopia in Chinese youth that have access to these technologies. Another article about that is, you're going to see it on your screen, from Australia, computer screen and mobile phone use damaging children's eyes. And the first line, it says that children as young as 5 are damaging their eyesight by spending too much time on smartphones, tablets, and computers, and not enough outdoors, according to experts. So that's another thing that we have to think about as parents. Think about their eyes. Think about, before these devices, what would my child have been looking at? Probably blocks, probably books, probably manipulatives, other things, but not something that is always so close to their eyes because they can't hold it any farther, and not something that's affecting their attention the way that we already mentioned, that it does not develop attention, especially for a child. The proof of that, there's an article that you'll see on Macworld. The title is it safe for kids to use iPads? Everything you need to know about minimum age requirements for Apple devices. This is something that, if you think about it, it should be labeled on the boxes, because parents, especially, they have these brands of iPads that are made supposedly just for children with educational software. But according to this article, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Canadian Society of Pediatrics stated infants ages 0 to 2 should not have any exposure to this technology at all. And this is, like I said, American Academy of Pediatrics, Canadian Society of Pediatrics. And then the other guideline is children ages 3 to 5 should be restricted to 1 hour per day. And the next recommendation, children ages 6 to 18 years old should be restricted to 2 hours a day. So that's something else that, of course, as parents, once you give the device, it's very hard to keep track of how long they're using it. And especially the children, they won't want to tell us, the ones that are verbal enough, they won't want to tell us because they're enjoying it. But, so that's another thing we have to keep in mind. There are recommendations from pediatricians and professional pediatric associations telling us, especially shocking, I think, you see a lot of kids, in my profession I see a lot of children, ages 0 to 2, they have their iPad already at that age. And the professionals are telling us that's not healthy, that's not safe. So that's something that we have to keep track of. Another thing, it's not all gloom and doom for these technologies. Of course, they are entertaining, and we are in reality, we can't escape them anymore. Parents do use them for keeping their kids busy, finding a few moments to cook, all those things. And again, what we're talking about is the overuse, the overexposure at an age that's too early. So one of the things that I came across in my research for this piece is that there are different kinds of use of the iPad. It's not just one category for children. One of the kinds is consumption, which is probably the worst kind. As a consumer, all you do of these technologies is you just look at it, you just absorb, and you don't do anything back. That's the worst kind of consumption, especially for children of these devices. The second kind of consumption or a type of use of this device is called play. And we know what play is. Play is that you're actually using it interactively to play, right? That's another kind of use that we have to think as parents, okay, is my child just consuming, or are they actually playing, at least doing something? Consuming, I don't want to mention websites, but we know what websites just show things over and over, and those are the kinds that are especially unhealthy. Playing, at least it's a little bit more interactive, but still there's things you have to worry about, like we said, the eyes, even carpal tunnel, those kind of things. The third kind is creative, and that's the kind that's probably the most beneficial. Not that we're going to allow our kids to use it for hours and hours, that's not the recommendation, but in terms of being creative, still allowing the child to create, those are the ones that are for drawing, for programming, for doing art. Those are the kinds of things that are uses that are the most recommendable. So in short, as a parent, we have to decide. First of all, our iPads, are they really good for our kids? Does a 1-year-old, does a 2-year-old really need to have this device in their life? As a parent, it's up to us to decide. But I think we have the judgment. We just have to do the research to see what other people have already discovered, which is iPads, it's not for everyone. It's not for all ages. Everything has its time, and especially it can have adverse effects on our children as well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate your time.
So after listening to our expert, I am really glad that we had the information, that new information given to us, because now as parents, we could actually do our own research, and hopefully we were able to pick up new things that we didn't know about the use of iPads and iPhones towards younger children. Like what I said, I'm a parent of a 2.5-year-old little girl, and I do admit that I have given her the iPad because, sometimes you just need that little bit of break so that you could concentrate on other things like prepare their food. But now I think I will really reconsider what amount of iPad usage my daughter will now have. So again, thank you for tuning in. This is Love Sanchez, EBC correspondent from Southwest California, and I am one with 25.